Haruki Murakami, Norwegian Woods, Chapter 6. As soon as I woke at 7 o'clock on the morning, I, wa- I washed my face, shaved, and went straight to the head's room, without eating breakfast to say that I was going to be gone for 2 days hiking in the hills. He was used to my taking short trips, and when I had free time and reached without surprise, I took a crowded commuter train to Tokyo Station and bought a bullet train ticket to Kyoto, literally jumping into the first Hikari Express to pull out. I had to do I had do with coffee and a sandwich for breakfast and dozed off for an hour. I arrived in Kyoto a few minutes before 11. Following Naoko's instruction, I took a city bus to a small terminal serving the northern suburbs. The next bus to my destination would not be leaving until 11:35. I was told, and the trip would take a little over an hour. I bought a ticket and went to the bookshop across the street for the map. Back in the waiting room, I studied the map to see if I could find exactly exactly where the army hostel was located. It turned out to be much farther into the mountains than I had imagined. The bus would have to cross several hills in the trek north, then turn around where the canyon road dead end and return to the city. My stop would be just before the end of the line, and there was a footpath near the bus stop, according to Naoko. And if I follow it for 20 minutes, I would reach Ami Hostel. No, no wonder it was such a quiet place. If it was that deep in the mountains, the bus pulled out with about 20 passengers aboard. Following the Kamo River through the north end of Kyoto, the tightly packed city streets gave way to the more sparse housing than fields and vacant lands, black tile, black tile roofs, and vinyl sided greenhouses caught the early autumn sun and sent it back with a glare. When the bus entered the canyon, the driver began howling the steering wheel, and this way and that to follow the twists and curves of the roads, and I began to feel queasy. I could still taste my morning coffee. By the time the number of the curves began to decrease to the point where I felt some relief, the bus plunged into the chilling cedar forest. The tree might have been old growth with the way they towered over the roads, blocking out the sun and covering everything in gloomy shadows. The breeze following into the bus open woods turned suddenly cold. Its dampness sharp against the skin. The valley road hugged the river, continuing so long through the trees it began to seem as if the whole world had begun buried. For never in the cedar forest, at which point the forest ended, and we came an open basin surrounded by the mountain peaks. Broad, green farmland spread out in all directions, and the river by the roads looked bright and clear. A single thread of white smoke rose in the distance. Some houses had drying in the sun. The dogs were howling. Each farmhouse had firewood out front piled up on the leaves, usually with a cat resting somewhere on the pile. The road was lined with such houses for time. But I saw not a single person. The scenery repeated this pattern any number of times. The bus would enter the cedar forest, come out to the village, and then go back into the forest. It would stop at a village to let people off, but no one ever got on. 45 minutes later, 40 minutes after leaving the city, the bus reached the mountain pass with a wide open view. The driver stopped the bus and announced that we would be waiting there for 5 or 6 minutes. People could step down from the bus if they wished. There were only 4 passengers left now. From the bus if they wished. There were only 4 passengers left now, including me. We all go out. We all got out and stretched or smoked and looked down at the panorama of Kyoto far below. The driver went off to one side for a pee. A stunted man, a suntanned man in his early 50s who had boarded the bus was with a big rope-tied cardboard carton asked me if I was going out to hike in the mountains. I said yes to keep things simple. Eventually, another bus came climbing from the south outside of the pass and stopped next to ours. The driver got out, had a short talk with our driver, and the 2 men climbed back into the buses. The 4 of us returned to our seats, and the bus was pulled in the opposite direction. It was not immediately clear to me why our bus had to wait for other one, but a short way down the other side of the mountain road narrowed suddenly. 2 big buses could never have passed each other on the road. In fact, passing ordinary cars coming in other directions required a good deal of maneuvering, with one of the other vehicles having to back up, squeeze into the overhang of the curve. The village along the road were far smeared now, and the level areas under cultivation even narrower. The mountains were steeper, its walls pressed closer to the bus windows. They seemed to have as many dogs as the other places, though the arrival of the bus would set off howling competition. At the stop where I got off, there was nothing no houses, no fields, just the bus stop sign, a little stream, and the trail opening. I slung my rucksack over my shoulder, started up the track. The stream ran along the left side of the trail, and a forest of deciduous trees lined the right. I had been climbing the gentle slope for some 15 minutes when I came to the road leading into the woods on the right, and the opening barely wide enough to accommodate a car. Army Hostel Private. No trespassing. Read the sign by the road. Sharply edged tire tracks ran up the road through the trees. The occasional flapping of the wings echoed in the woods. The sound came through with strange clarity, as if amplified above other voices of the forest. Once, from far away, I heard what might have been a rifle shot, but it was a small and muffled sound, as though it had passed through the several filters. Beyond the woods, I came to a wide stone wall. It was no higher than my own height, and lacking additional barriers on top, would have been easy for me to scale. The black iron gate looked sturdy enough, but it was wide open. There was no meaning in the garden house. Another sign like the last one stood by the gate. Army Hostel Private, no trespassing. A few clues suggested that the guard had been there until some moments before. The ashtray held 3 butt ends, and the teacup stood there half empty. A transistor rod sat on the shelf, and the clock on the wall ticked off the time with a dry sound. I waited a while for the person to come back, but when that showed no sign of happening, I gave a few pushes to something that looked as if it might have been a bell. The area just inside the gate was car park. In it stood a minibus, a four-wheel drive Land Cruiser, a dark blue Volvo. The car park could have held 30 cars, but only those 3 were parked there now. 2 or 3 minutes went by, and then a gatekeeper in the navy blue uniform came down the forest. came down the forest road on a yellow bicycle. He was a tall man with his early 60s receding hair. He leaned the yellow bike against the guardhouse and said, "I'm very sorry to have kept you painted in the white on the bike's mudguard." When I gave him my name, he picked up the phone and repeated it twice to someone on the road on the other end replied, "Yes, aha, I see," to the other person, then hung up. "Go to the main building, please, and ask for Dr. Ishida," he said to me. "You take this road through the trees to a roundabout, then take your second left. Got that? Your second left. And from the roundabout, you see another old house. You see an old house. Turn right and go through the another breach of the trees towards a concrete building. That's the main building. It's easy. Just watch for the signs." I took the second left from the roundabout, as instructed, and where the path ended, I came to an interesting old building that obviously had been someone's country house once. It had a manicured garden with a well-sharped rocks and stone lantern. It might have been a country estate. Turning right through the trees, I saw a three-story concrete building. It stood in the hollowed out area, so there was nothing overwhelming about its 3 stories. It was simple in design and gave a strong impression of cleanliness. The entrance was on the second floor. I climbed the stairs and went through a big glass door to find a young woman in a red dress at the reception desk. I gave her my name and said I had been instructed to ask for Dr. Ishida. She smiled and gestured towards a brown sofa, suggesting in low tones that I wait there for the doctor to come. Then she dialed a number. I lowered my rucksack from my back and sank down into the deep cushions of the sofa and surveyed the place. It was clean, pleasant lobby with ornamental potted plants, tasteful abstract paintings, and a polished floor. As I waited, I kept my eyes on the floor's reflection on my shoes. At one point, receptionist assured me, "The doctor will be here soon." I nodded. What an incredibly quiet place. There were no sounds of any kind. It was as though everyone were taking a siesta. People, animals, insects, plants must all be sound asleep. I thought it was such a quiet afternoon. Before long, though, I heard the soft painting of the rubber soles, and a mature, bristly-haired woman appeared. She swept across the lobby, sat down next to me, crossed her legs, and took my hand. Instead of just shaking it, she turned my hand over, examining it front and back. "You haven't played a musical instrument, at least not for some years. Now, have you?" Were the first sound of her mouth. "No," I said, taken aback. "You're right. I can tell it from your hands," she said with a smile. There was something almost mysterious about this woman. Her face had lots of wrinkles. These were the first thing to catch your eyes, but they didn't make her look old. Instead, they emphasized a certain youthfulness in her, and that transcended her age. The wrinkles belonged where they were, and as if it had been a part of her face since birth. With, when she smiled, the wrinkles smiled with her, and when she frowned, the wrinkles frowned too. And when she was neither smiling nor frowning, the wrinkles lay scattered over her face in a strangely warm, ironic way. Here was a woman in her late 30s who seemed not merely a nice person, but whose niceness drew you to her. I liked her from the moment I saw her. Widely chopped, Her hair stuck out in patches, and the fringes lay crooked against her forehead, but the style suited her perfectly. She wore a blue work shirt over a white t-shirt, baggy cream-colored cotton trouser, tennis shoes, long and slim. She had almost no breasts. Her lips moved constantly to one side in a kind of ironic curl, and the wrinkles at the corner of her eyes moved in tiny twitches. She looked like a kindly, skilled, but somewhat world-weary female carpenter. Chin drawn in and the lips curled. She took some time to look me over from head to toe. I imagined that any minute now she was going to whip out her tape measure and start measuring me everywhere. Can you play an instrument? She asked. Sorry, no, I said. Too bad, she said. It would have been fun. I suppose so, I said. Well, by all I by all this talk about musical instruments, she took a pack of 7 stars from her breast pocket, put one between her lips, lit it, and with a lighter, and began puffing away with obvious pleasure. It crossed my mind that I should tell you about this place. Mr. Watanabe, wasn't it? Before you see Naoko. So I arranged for the two of us to have this little talk. Ami hostel is kind of unusual. You might find it a little confusing without any background knowledge. I'm right, aren't I? In supposing that you don't know anything about this place. Almost nothing. Well then, first of all, she began, then snapped her fingers. Come to think of it, have you had lunch? I'll bet you are hungry. You're right, I am. Come with me then. We can talk over food in the dining hall. Lunchtime is over. But if we go now, they can still make us something. She took the lead, pouring down a corridor and a flight of stairs to the first floor. Dining hall. It was a large room with enough space for perhaps 200 people, but only half was in use. The other half partitioned off like a resort hotel out of the season. The day's menu listed a potato stew with noodles, salad, orange juice, and bread. The vegetable turned out to be as delicious as Naoko had said in her letter, and I finished everything on my plate. You obviously enjoy your food, said my female companion. It's wonderful, I said. Plus, I've hardly eaten anything all day. You're welcome to mine if you like. I'm full. Here, go ahead. I will if you really don't want it. I have got a small stomach. It doesn't hold much. I make up for what I am missing with cigarettes. She lit another 7 star. Oh, by the way, you can call me Reiko. Everybody does. Reiko seemed to derive great pleasure from watching me. While I ate the potato stew, she had hardly touched or munched on her bread. Are you Narco's doctor? I asked. Me? Narco's doctor? She screwed up her face. What makes you think I am a doctor? They told me to ask for a Dr. Ishida. Oh, I get it. No. I teach music here. It's a kind of therapy for some patients. So for fun, they call me the music doctor, and sometimes Dr. Ishida. But I'm just another patient. I've been here 7 years. I work as a music teacher, help out in the office. So it's hard to tell anymore whether I'm a patient or stuff. Didn't Nako tell you about me? I shook my head. Strange, said Ryuko. I'm Nako's roommate. I like living with her. We talk about the kinds of things, including you. What about me? Well, first I have to tell you about this place, said Ryuko, ignoring my question. My first thing you ought to know is that this is no ordinary hospital. It's not so much for the treatment as for the convalescence. We do have a Few doctors, of course, and they give hourly sessions, but they're just checking people's condition, taking their temperature and things like that, not administering treatments as in an ordinary hospital, not administering treatments as in an ordinary hospital. There are no bars on the windows here, and the gate is always wide open. People enter and leave voluntarily, and you have to be suited to that kind of convalescences to be admitted here in the first place. In some cases, people who need specialized therapy end up going to a specialized hospital. Okay, so far? I think so, I said. But what does this convalescence consist of? Can you give me a concrete example? Reiko exhaled a cloud of smoke and drank what was left of her orange juice. Just living here is the convalescence, she said. Convalescence, a regular routine, exercise, isolation from the outside world, clean air, quiet. Our farmlands makes us practically self-sufficient, and there is no TV or radio. We are one of those commune places you hear so much about. Of course, one thing different from the commune is that it costs a bundle to get in here. A bundle? Well, it's not ridiculously expensive, but not cheap. Just look at the facilities. We've got a lot of land here, a few patients, a big staff. And in my case, I've been here a long time. True, I am almost staff myself, so I get concessions. But still, now how can a cup of coffee? Now, how about a cup of coffee? I said, I'd like some. She subbed out of a cigarette and went over to the counter where she poured 2 cups of coffee from a warm pot and brought it back we, where we were sitting. She put a sugar in hers and stirred it, frowned, and took a sip. You know, she said, this sanatorium is not a profit making enterprise, so it can keep going without charging as much as it might have to otherwise. The land was a donation. They created a corporation for the purpose. The whole place used to be a donor's summer home about 20 years ago. You saw the old house, I'm sure. I said I had. That used to be the only building on the property. It's where they did group therapy. That's how it all got started. The donor's son had a tendency towards mental illness, and a specialist recommended group therapy for him. The doctor's theory was that if you could have a group of patients living outside in the country, helping each other with the physical labor, and have a doctor for advice and checkups, you could cure certain kinds of sickness. They tried it, and the operation grew and incorporated, and they put more land under civilized cultivation and put up the main building 5 years ago. Meaning the therapy worked? Well, not for everything. Lots of people don't get better, but also a lot of people who couldn't be helped anywhere else managed a complete recovery here. The best thing about this place is that the way everybody helps everybody else. Everybody knows they're flawed in some way, and so they try to help each other. The other petty places don't work that way, unfortunately. The doctors are the doctors, and the patients are the patients. The patients look for help to the doctors, and the doctor gives their help to the patients. Here, though we all help each other, we are all each other's mirror. The doctors are a part of us. They watch us from the sidelines, and they slip in to help us if they see we need something. But it sometimes happens that we help them. Sometimes we are better at something than they are. For example, I'm teaching one doctor to play piano, and another patient is teaching a nurse French. That kind of thing. Patients with problems like ours are often blessed with special abilities. So everyone here is equal, patient, staff, you. You're one of us while you're here in it. While in here. So I help you and you help me. Reiko smiled, gently flexing every wrinkle on her face. You help Naoko, Naoko helps you. What should I do then? Give an example. First, you decide that you want to help and that you need to be helped by the other person. Then you are totally honest. You will not lie. You will not gloss over anything. You will not cover up anything, and that might prove embarrassing to you. That's all there is to it. I'll try, I said. But tell me, Ryoko, why have you been here for 7 years? Talking with you like this, I can't believe there's anything wrong with you. Not while the sun's up, she said with a somber look, but when night comes, I start drooling and rolling on the floors. Really? Don't be ridiculous. I'm kidding, she said, her head with a look of disgust. I'm completely well, for now at least. I stay here because I enjoy helping other people get well, teaching music, growing vegetables. I like it here. We are like more or less friends compared to that what I have got in outside world. I'm 38, going on 40. I'm not like Naoko. There's nobody waiting for me to get out. No family to take me back. I don't have any work to speak of, and almost no friends. And after 7 years, I don't know what's going on out there. Oh, I'll read a paper in the library every once in a while, but I haven't set foot outside the wall properly all that time. I wouldn't know what to do if I left. But maybe a new world would open up for you. I said, it's worth a try, don't you think? Hmm, you may be right, she said, turning her cigarette lighter over and over her hand. But I've got my own set of problems. I can tell you all about them sometime if you like. I nodded in response. And Naoko, I said, is she better? Hmm, we think so. She was pretty confused at first, and we had our doubts for a while, but she's calmed now and improved to the point where she is able to express herself verbally. She is definitely heading in the right direction, but she should have received treatment a lot earlier. Her symptoms were already apparent from the time that boyfriend of hers, Kizuki, killed himself. Her family should have seen it, and she herself should have realized that something was wrong. Of course, things weren't right at home either. They weren't? I shot back. You didn't know? Rico seemed more surprised than I was. I shook my head. I'd better let Naoko tell you about that herself. She's all ready for some honest talk with you. Rico gave her coffee another stir and took a sip. There's one more thing you need to know, she said. According to the rules here, you and Naoko will not be allowed to be alone together. Visitors cannot be alone with patients. An observer always has to be present, in which case means me. I'm sorry, but you'll have to put up with me, okay? Okay, I said with a smile. But still, she said, the two of you can talk about anything you like. Forget I'm here, there. I know pretty much everything there is to know about you and Naoko. Everything? Pretty much. We have these group sessions, you know. We learn a lot about each other. Thus Naoko and I talk about everything. We don't have many secrets here. I looked at Ryoko as I drank my coffee. To tell you the truth, I said, I'm confused. I still don't know whether what I did to Naoko in Tokyo was the right thing to do or not. I've been thinking about this the whole time, but I still don't know. Neither do I, said Ryoko, and neither does Naoko. That's something the two of you will have to decide for yourself. See what I mean? Whatever happened to the two of you can turn it into the right direction. If you can, if you can reach some kind of mutual understanding. Maybe once you have got that taken care of, you can go back and think about whether what happened was the right thing or not. What do you say? I nodded. I think the three of us can help each other. You, Anako, and I. If we really want to, if we are really honest, it can be incredibly effective when the three people worked at it like that. How can you stay? How long can you stay? Well, I'd like to get back to Tokyo by early evening in the day after tomorrow. I have to go to work and I've got a German exam on Thursday. Good, she said. So you can stay with us. That way it won't cost you anything. You can talk without having to worry about the time. With us? I asked. Nako and me, of course, said Reiko. We have a separate bedroom. There's a sofa bed in the living room, so you'll be able to sleep fine. Don't worry. Do they allow that? I asked. Can a male visitor stay in the woman's room? I don't suppose you're going to come in and rape us in the middle of the night, right? Don't be silly. So there's no problem. Then stay in our place and we have some nice long talks. That would be the best thing. Then we can really understand each other. And I can play my guitar for you. I'm pretty good to you. Are you sure? I'm not going to be in the way. Reiko put her third seven stars between her lips and lit it after screwing up the corner of her mouth. Naoko and I have already discussed this. The two of us together are giving a personal invitation to stay with us. Don't you think? Should we politely accept? Of course, I'll be glad to. Reiko deepened the wrinkles at the corner of her eyes and looked at me for a time. You've got this funny way of talking, she said. Don't tell me you're trying to imitate that boy in The Catcher in the Rye. No way, I said with a smile. Echo smiled too. Cigarettes in her mouth. You're a good person, though. I can tell that from looking at you. I can tell these things after 7 years of watching people come and go here. There are people who can come, who can open their hearts, and people who can't. You're one of the ones who can, or more precisely, you can if you want to. What happens when people open their hearts? Reiko clasped her hands together on the table, cigarettes dangling from her lips. She enjoyed this. They get better, she said, ash dropping onto the table, but she seemed not to notice. Reiko and I left the main building, crossed the hill, and passed by the pool, some tennis courts and basket court. Two men, one thin, the other middle-aged, and the other young and fat, were on a tennis court. Both used the rackets well. Both used the rackets well. But to me, the game they were playing could not have been tennis. It seemed as if two of them had a special interest in bouncing off the tennis balls and were doing research in that area. They slammed the ball back and forth with a kind of strange concentration. Both were drenched in sweat. The young man in the end of the court closer to us noticed Reiko and corned over. They exchanged a few words, smiling. Near the court, a man with no expressions on his face was using a large mower to cut the grass. Moving on, we came to the patch of the woods where some of 15 or 20 neat little cottages stood at some distance from each other. The same kind of yellow bike the gatekeeper had been riding was parked at the entrance of almost every house. Staff members and their families live here, said Reiko. We have just about everything we need without going to the city, she said as we walked along. Where food is concerned, as I said before, we practically self sufficient. We get eggs from our own kitchen's chicken coop. We have books and records and exercise facilities, our own convenience stores, and every week barber and beauticians come to visit. We have films at weekends. Anything special we need, we can ask the staff members to buy for us in the town. Clothing we order from catalogs. Living here is no problem. But you can't go into the town. But you can't go into the town. No, that we can't do, of course. But you can't go into the town. No, that we can't do, of course. If there's something special, like we have to go to a dentist or something, that's another matter. But as a rule, we can't go into the town. Each person is completely free to leave this place. But once you left, you can't come back. You burn your bridges. You can't go off for a couple of days in the town and expect to come back. It only stands to reason. Everybody would be coming and going. Beyond the trees, we came to a gentle slope along which, at regular intervals, was a row of two-story wooden houses that had something about them. What made them look strange, it's hard to say, but that was the first thing I felt. When I saw them, my reaction was a lot like what we feel when we see unreality painted in pleasant way. It occurred to me that this was what you might get if Walt Disney did an animation version of Munch painting. All the houses were exactly of the same shape, color, and nearly cubical, in perfect left to right symmetry, with big front doors and lot of windows. The roads twisted its way among them like artificial practice, of course, of a driving school. There was a well manicured flowering shrubbery. There was a well manicured flowering shrubbery in front of the every house. The place was deserted and curtains covered all the windows. This is called Area C. The women live here, us. There are 10 houses, each containing 4 units. 2 people per unit. That's 80 people altogether. But at the moment there are only 32 of us. Quite, isn't it? Well, there's nobody here now, Draco said. I've been given special permission to move around freely in like this, but everyone else off pursuing their individual schedule. Some are exercising, some are gardening, some are in group therapy, some are out gathering wild plants. Each person makes up his or her own schedule. Let us see what Nako is doing. I think she was supposed to be walking. New paint and wallpaper. I forget. There are few jobs like that don't finish till 5.